The year Chloe Davis temporarily lost her sight, she seemed more attached to me than ever. She'd persuade me to help her with schoolwork, then talk about wanting to attend the same university as me. But she also fabricated illnesses and went missing, which caused me to miss an important academic competition. I just figured it was the effect of her condition making her feel insecure. That was my understanding until a few months before the university entrance exams when I overheard a conversation. Her friend was trying to reason with her. "Chloe, Mark is so good to you. Are you really going to keep up this pretense of being unable to see, tricking him into taking a year off school all by himself? Liam wants the top score in the province this year." Of course I'm helping him. The girl who was always so sweet and innocent with me now sounded quite relaxed, almost uncaring. "This is the last time. Besides, Mark is so smart. What's the big deal if he's set back a year? I can just wait for him at university." I froze, my mind completely blank. My hand clenched tighter around the birthday present I was holding. Chloe had been distant lately, and I'd hoped to use her birthday to smooth things over. I never expected to hear this. But what did all that mean? As I stood there stunned, her friend frowned. "Aren't you afraid Mark will be furious when he finds out the truth? It was one thing when you faked sickness or disappeared to keep him from competition so Liam could win first place, but this is the final exam. The actual one." She deliberately emphasized those last two words. The room fell silent. "Hey, whose side are you on anyway?" Someone else suddenly spoke up. "Doesn't Mark owe Chloe this? If she hadn't been out looking for him, would she have been temporarily blinded in the first place? But we all know that car accident was Chloe's fault." "Enough!" A metal dart narrowly missed her friend's cheek. It struck the center of the target with its feathers still vibrating. And Chloe Davis, the girl I believed was blind and needed my constant attention, was sitting casually on the sofa. She looked up, completely unconcerned. "So what if he finds out? Mark likes me so much. All I have to do is act sweet and play the victim a little, and he'll definitely forgive me." Her tone was completely assured. The tense atmosphere instantly broke, returning to noisy chatter. "You have to hand it to Chloe when it comes to being manipulative," another person joked. "The way you were so nice to him, even we almost thought you'd actually fallen for your little follower. But hey, Chloe, why didn't you even invite him to your birthday? Didn't you say you had to maintain the act? You said it yourself, he's a follower. Wouldn't it be tacky to invite him?" Chloe didn't reject the description. She seemed to recall something, frowning and clicking her tongue in annoyance. "Besides, he annoyed Liam. Now I can't even stand to look at him. I can't pretend anymore." Her defiance was evident, laced with malice. As her words sunk in, a strange feeling washed over me, accompanied by a sharp, undeniable ache. I was confused and lost. I had never seen this side of Chloe, not even that day at the hospital, not even after she discovered she couldn't see. Chloe had never been so sharp-tongued. She had even stopped my mother from grabbing me and trying to force me to apologize. She had put on a brave face, saying, "This has nothing to do with Mark, but I probably won't be able to attend school normally anymore. Could you maybe help me catch up on my classes from now on?" A white bandage covered her beautiful eyes. The pale-faced girl, still disoriented, tried to locate the source of my voice. Then she smiled to comfort me. I stared at Chloe, stunned. While I was grateful she couldn't see how pathetic I looked, something in my heart lurched violently. I quickly turned my face away. "Okay," I said, my voice hoarse. I thought I was making amends for my mistake. But after she went blind, Chloe became incredibly reliant on me. She said I was her best friend. She said she wanted to go to university with me. So I slowly grew to like it, even starting to believe in a shared dream. Until now. "I think I heard my name. What are you guys talking about?" A smiling male voice drifted down from the staircase. The next second, Chloe's eyes brightened. She stood up. As her gaze landed on him, all her sharpness dissolved into joy and shyness. "Liam!" It was another side of her I'd never witnessed. Liam quickly integrated with Chloe's friends. I watched as Chloe's eyes kept returning to Liam, only to quickly look away as if nothing happened. But they were sparkling. She was paying close attention to him. The moment he raised his hand, she intuitively handed him a glass of water. Liam paused, then his eyes crinkled into a smile. "Thanks, Chloe. I was just getting thirsty." Chloe ran a hand through her hair. "It's nothing," she mumbled. The room erupted in playful jeers. I was a little surprised, too. To be honest, after taking care of Chloe for so long, I had never seen such a considerate side of her. After losing her sight, Chloe had become sensitive and easily upset. Later, she constantly used fabricated illnesses and disappearances to elicit worry and attention from those around her. It was her way of affirming her presence and importance. Especially to me. I thought it was just because she was ill and insecure, but now her friend was saying Chloe did all of it for Liam. She made me miss competitions so Liam could take first place. The reason sounded unbelievable, but I believed it. "Mark!" Amidst all the noise, her friend was the first to spot me. She jumped up from her seat, looking extremely uncomfortable. "Well, when did you get here?" As soon as she spoke, many of the others quieted down, their expressions odd. They exchanged glances. Then their eyes instinctively darted toward Chloe. Chloe, her back to me, tensed. She only relaxed almost imperceptibly after she heard me say, "Just got here." She turned around, her face a hard, blank mask. Her voice was stiff as she asked, "What are you doing here?" Lately, Chloe's temper had worsened. The periods of silence were lasting longer and longer. At first, I thought I had done something wrong. Now, I figured Chloe felt her task was almost complete, so she couldn't be bothered to keep up the charade with me anymore. But she was a damn good actress. The moment I appeared, her once sparkling black eyes turned vacant and empty. The look I knew so well, and that always broke my heart. I looked away, toward Liam. He was greeting me, this uninvited guest, like he owned the place, but he couldn't hide the mockery and provocation in his eyes. I pulled my gaze back. The sweet conciliatory words I'd practiced over and over on my way here got stuck in my throat, and I swallowed them whole. "Mrs. Davis is worried about you. I was in the neighborhood for an errand, and she asked me to pick you up on my way back." I hid the gift I was holding behind my back. Chloe didn't notice my small movement. She frowned, her tone a little strange. "Just for that?" I nodded. "Yeah." But for some reason, Chloe seemed to get even angrier. There was also a faint, almost imperceptible hint of feeling wronged. She stared at me, her voice rising. "Is that it, Mark? Do you even know what today? Oh my God, Liam, what happened to your hand?" A sudden cry cut off Chloe's angry outburst. She immediately forgot about being mad at me. She even forgot she was still pretending to be blind. She instinctively looked at Liam, her expression tense. "What happened to your hand?" Liam reassured her. "It's nothing, just a little cut from a piece of glass." "A piece of glass?" Chloe asked, confused. "Where would there be glass shards in the house?" "It was that little ceramic puppy with the scarf you had on the cabinet." Liam's tone was apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Chloe. I just thought it was cute and wanted to take a look, but I accidentally dropped it. How about I buy you a new one? By the way, where did you get it?" Chloe hadn't processed it yet, but my head snapped up. I stared blankly at the group of people in front of me. I had given Chloe a ceramic puppy with a scarf. It was a gift to celebrate her getting out of the hospital. I spent a long time making it. I broke it and remade it over and over. Finally, I brought my best work to her, full of excitement. But the gifts from Chloe's other friends were expensive and exquisite. "Mark, what did you get?" Someone saw me and deliberately shouted. "I mean, our girl Chloe is so good to you. Your gift has to be better than ours, right? It better be the most expensive one here." "I wouldn't be so sure." Look at him. Does he look like he can afford anything nice? Hey, our class president just got his scholarship check last week. He can even afford fast food now, so what's the big deal about saving up for a gift? The eyes on me were all filled with the anticipation of a good show. I didn't know why these people held so much hostility toward me, and that fast food was just something I'd picked up for a teacher on my way. But they had seen me with it. And in their mouths, I became some kind of monster. I was used to their taunts. They were just words. They couldn't cause any real harm. But for some reason, when I saw the expectant look on Chloe's face, I instinctively hid the little puppy behind my back. When no gift was forthcoming, Chloe thought I hadn't brought one. The girl's eyes instantly turned red with hurt. A thin veil of tears masked her vacant black eyes, but she still forced a smile to comfort me. It's okay. Just having you here with me makes me really happy. I was at a loss, clumsily trying to console her. Finally, I gritted my teeth and took out the gift. My face flushed red as I defended myself in a tiny voice. I did get you something, but I was afraid Chloe wouldn't like it. Chloe loved dogs, but she couldn't have one because of her allergies. So I made her a ceramic puppy. When I was painting it, the old craftsman I knew even complimented my work. But now that I was actually giving it to her, I felt the puppy was poorly made. The colors were dull. It wasn't nearly good enough for Chloe. Chloe couldn't see. So she tilted her head curiously and asked, "What did Mark get me?" "It's a puppy." I took Chloe's hand and guided her fingers over the puppy's head, ears, nose. I was prepared for her to hate it, but after she felt it all over, Chloe clutched the puppy tightly and wouldn't let go. "This is my favorite gift today." As if she was defending me, she declared it loudly. She said she would take good care of it, and yet the puppy was left in a vacation home she rarely visited. And now, it was broken. I instinctively looked for Chloe's reaction. "Don't worry about it," Chloe didn't remember, so she said casually, "My mom probably just bought it at some random store. It's just a little decoration. If it's broken, it's broken." It had only been a few months. I clenched the birthday gift in my hand. My chest ached with a dull pain. It took me a long moment to suppress the sting in my eyes. But no one cared. Everyone was fussing over Liam, and I was obviously out of place. I stood there, watching for a while. Then I quietly left. The noise behind me faded into the distance. I didn't want to bother anyone, so I silently composed myself. And I thought, this really is the last time. Chloe's sight had been fine for a while. She had plenty of people around her, so she didn't need me to keep her company. And she certainly didn't need one more gift from me. Good thing the gift was still wrapped. I could sell it and get some money back. And during the time I was taking care of Chloe, I had earned my tuition money. That was enough. When Chloe looked up again, Mark was gone. Her eyebrow twitched, and she turned to the person next to her. "Where's Mark?" "I don't know." The person looked just as confused, then waved a dismissive hand. He probably realized no one wanted him here and just left. In the past, these people had said much worse things about Mark right in front of her. Even Chloe herself hadn't planned on him coming over in the first place. But for some reason, this time, the words just annoyed her. What did it matter to them if Mark was likable or not? "Shut up." She shot the person a glare, then told someone to call Mark back. She already had her excuse ready. Today was her birthday. Even if she hadn't invited him, hadn't even told him, how could Mark forget her birthday? He didn't even get her a birthday gift. Chloe suddenly froze, her pupils shrinking. She thought she probably knew why Mark had left. But ceramic is fragile. Besides, Liam didn't break it on purpose. It was just a ceramic puppy. And over something so small, Mark just left without a word. He said he was here to take her home. Doesn't he know I can't see? That it's dangerous for me to go home alone? He talks about caring for me, about being there for me, but it was all lies. Just like when he promised to take a year off school with her, but then went and got the top score in the city on last week's practice exam, making Liam upset. Mark was a liar. The thought made Chloe even more agitated. Her expression turned sour. She called out to the person who was about to leave, sneering. "Forget it. He comes and goes as he pleases. Who does he think he is? With that rotten attitude, who's going to put up with him?" The others looked at each other, completely baffled. But no one dared to say a word. Only her friend had a strange look on her face. "Chloe, do you think Mark might have heard what we were saying earlier?" "No way," Chloe blurted it out without thinking. She was absolutely certain. "Mark likes me so much. If he knew I'd been lying to him, he wouldn't be this calm. He'd probably have tears in his eyes." Though in all the years she'd known him, she'd never once seen Mark cry. But Chloe was just sure of it. Hearing her say that, her friend looked like she wanted to say more, but held her tongue. In the end, she just sighed and said nothing. Chloe pretended not to notice. But for some reason, that inexplicable sense of irritation wouldn't go away. It was as if something was spiraling out of control. She finally concluded it was because Mark had forgotten her birthday, which really ticked her off. She decided she wouldn't contact Mark for a while. Not unless he came to her and apologized first. The more she thought about it, the uglier Chloe's expression became. A vacuum had formed around her, and no one dared to get close. "Chloe." It wasn't until Liam, his hand bandaged, sat down affectionately beside her. He asked, as if casually, "Did Mark really agree to take a year off school?" Her hands resting on her knees suddenly froze. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. She glanced over and saw Liam biting his lip, speaking hesitantly. "But this isn't exactly a fair way to do things, Chloe. Maybe we should just—" "Liam!" Chloe suddenly cut him off. A brilliant smile spread across her face. "I promised I'd help you." "Thanks, Chloe." The tension on Liam's face eased, and his eyes crinkled into a smile. But for some reason, Chloe suddenly thought of Mark. Mark wasn't conventionally handsome. Even his smile was faint and reserved. If it hadn't been for Liam, she would have never become friends with that quiet guy. Chloe's eyes flickered. She'd made her decision in the blink of an eye, but she still had to go find Mark. It wasn't because she wanted to see him, it was just because she'd said she would help Liam. The last year of high school is a busy time. So after the initial pain, I quickly forced myself to pull it together. I still dropped off my organized review notes at the Davises' house every few days. "Mark, you don't have to work so hard," Mrs. Davis sighed, trying to persuade me. "Chloe's already decided to take a year off school." But Chloe had never planned on taking a year off school. She would suddenly recover just before the final exams. Then she'd take them with Liam. Maybe she'd even wait for me, the gap year student in university. "It's okay," I said, not exposing Chloe's lie. I just shook my head. It's a good way for me to review everything one more time. It was the truth. With only a few months left, I didn't want any more surprises. Besides, Mrs. Davis was a good person. When I first started high school, my mother didn't want me to continue my education. It was Mrs. Davis who stepped in and persuaded her. She said that with me and her daughter at the same school, we could look out for each other. But in private, my mother would glare at me, pushing me to get closer to Chloe. Perhaps because she saw through my mother's intentions, Chloe had never liked me much before. "Oh, what's so hard about it for him?" My mother, carrying a bowl of soup upstairs, heard us and scoffed. "If you ask me, he should be the one taking a year off school with Chloe. If it weren't for that bad omen, maybe Chloe would have gotten the top score in the province this year." Mrs. Davis frowned. She knew there was no getting through to my mother, so she just reminded me to balance my studies with rest before telling me to hurry home. I nodded and agreed. As I was leaving the Davises, Chloe came downstairs. She stood there, holding on to the railing. She was barely wearing anything. "Honey, didn't Mom tell you to call for someone when you want to come downstairs? And you're wearing so little, what if you fall and hurt yourself?" Mrs. Davis rushed over to help her. Chloe's lips were pressed into a tight line. She turned her head. Her vacant black eyes aimed precisely in my direction, as if she were faintly hoping for something. Before, I would have rushed over with Mrs. Davis, fussing over her. But this time I quickly looked away. After a brief goodbye, I left quietly. Mrs. Davis noticed. "Are you giving Mark the cold shoulder again?" "I am not," Chloe snapped, her words sharp with anger. I guess Chloe saved all her good moods for Liam. That's what I thought, and I didn't let it bother me. Until the next day, when I found the notes I'd sent to Chloe thrown on the floor by the men's restroom. The pages were soaked with dirty water. The neat handwriting was blurred. I stood there for a long moment, then belatedly bent down to pick them up. But someone stepped on the notebook first. "Oh, I was wondering where this went. So it fell here." Liam feigned regret. "But it's so dirty now. I guess it'll have to be thrown out. I'm sure Mark won't mind, right?" Before I could say anything, a beautifully covered notebook landed squarely in the trash can, full of dirty water by the door. Liam's face instantly changed. "Who did that?" "Oops, sorry, my hand slipped." A crisp, pleasant voice rang out. Then, in an exaggerated tone, it threw Liam's own words back at him. "But it's so dirty now. I guess it'll have to be thrown out. I'm sure Liam won't mind, right?" I looked up. Our eyes met across the room. The person who had been casually slinging their school jacket over their shoulder let out a mock guilty cough. Then they dutifully put on the jacket, zipped it up, and blinked innocently at me. Sarah Chen had transferred to Northwood High a month ago. When she first arrived, Mr. Davis came to me with a worried look on his face. His opening line was, "My niece is a real handful." "A handful? She says she doesn't want to study and no one can control her. Her dad was at his wit's end, so he sent her to my class, hoping I could keep an eye on her." Meeting Mr. Davis's hopeful gaze, I hesitated. "But I'm not very good at managing people." "Don't worry," he said with a wave of his hand. "With how dedicated you are to your studies, I refuse to believe that girl can just sleep through class with a clear conscience." And so Sarah became my deskmate. At first, I didn't see any signs of her being a handful. She was incredibly popular. Soon after she arrived, she was already friends with everyone in the class. Even the most stuck-up kid in class had something good to say about her. Even when she slept in class, and I, under Mr. Davis's pleading gaze, poked her awake with my pen, Sarah would just look up at me with a playfully, mournful glance. Then she'd obediently pick up her book. I didn't know if she was actually reading, but at least Mr. Davis's expression softened. Until the day the well-behaved Sarah turned in a blank exam during a practice test. That day, Mr. Davis was so furious, he spent the entire period pointing his finger at her and yelling. She, on the other hand, calmly told him not to get so worked up that he made himself sick. It wasn't worth it. Her mindset was so relaxed, you'd think she wasn't the one being scolded. After class, many students gathered around to comfort Sarah. Someone even taught her that next time, if she really didn't know what to write, she should just write compliments for the teacher. Maybe he'd take pity on her and give her a sympathy point. "Sarah, you're my hero." The student who gave the advice grabbed her arm, looking moved. "Ever since you got here, the number of times Mr. Davis yells at me has dropped dramatically. I feel like he looks at me like his own son now. You can't let him drive you away." "Get lost." Sarah couldn't keep a straight face and broke into a laugh. The lively atmosphere died the moment I walked in. Everyone tactfully returned to their seats. I glanced at Sarah but said nothing. She waited expectantly for a moment. Seeing no reaction from me, she frowned, finally unable to hold back. "Why aren't you yelling at me?" "Why would I yell at you?" I kept my head down, working on my test paper. Sarah helpfully reminded me, "Didn't Mr. Davis ask you to keep me in line?" I shook my head. "He said no one can control you." So you're not curious? Will being curious get me more points on my exam? Sarah was speechless. After a long moment, she let out a muffled laugh. I know Mr. Davis said I was a handful, but I think you're even more of one than I am. I ignored her, but Sarah pressed on, relentless. Why are you so obsessed with studying? I've been watching you. As class president, you're not even as popular as I am, and I'm new here. That's it? Sarah was surprised and blurted out, Aren't you afraid that people won't like you? My test paper was snatched away. I sighed and looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. No matter how much they dislike me, it can't compare to how much I dislike myself. I knew a lot of kids in class said I was like a robot, that I had no social skills. Mr. Davis had also gently suggested that he hoped I would interact more with my classmates. I also knew that after Sarah became my deskmate, many people had expressed their sympathy for her. But no one knew me better than I did. So the person who disliked me the most was me. Sarah understood. She looked a little stunned. Just as she was about to say something else, the class bell rang. I thought Sarah would gradually become like the other students, but she was a strange one. She said she wanted to know why someone would dislike even themselves. And I could never find an opportunity to say anything harsh to push her away, because she was just too perceptive. The moment she saw even a slight change in my expression, she would obediently retreat to her own space. Her dark, clear eyes would watch me quietly, innocently. The corners of her eyes drooped slightly. She looked just like the little stray dog I often fed after evening study sessions. I don't know either, I sighed, then pointed to the blank English worksheet on her desk. Aren't you going to do that? Mrs. Liu's class is next. As soon as the words were out, Sarah almost lost her composure. She frantically started scribbling on the paper while putting on a brave face. I'm not scared of her. I just think Mrs. Liu is getting older, and it's not easy for her. I have to respect my elders. Mr. Davis is even older, I thought, and I don't see you showing him much respect. As she wrote, Sarah suddenly started laughing. I looked at her, confused. It's nothing. I just think you're too nice, Sarah sighed heavily. So honest. What are you going to do if someone bullies you? She sounded like a worried mother hen. And now Sarah, feeling that I had been bullied, was rolling up her sleeves, ready to get even for me. Liam was so angry his eyes turned red. To make a good impression on his classmates, he always generously lent out his notes. His notes were very detailed, and he only had one copy. Mine was just a duplicate. Seeing that people were already starting to comfort Liam, and the looks directed at Sarah were turning sour, Sarah's expression grew uncharacteristically solemn. I thought she had realized how reckless she'd been. But then she turned and tugged on my sleeve. She whispered, "Class president, can you cry?" I expressionlessly pulled my sleeve free. No. Even on the day I found out Chloe had been lying to me, I didn't cry. Sarah looked shocked. Her eyes held a hint of condemnation, as if to say, "You're the one being bullied here. Shouldn't you be acting a little more outraged?" I was silent for a moment, then suggested, "He has red eyes. You cry too." I was just saying it offhand, but Sarah thought about it seriously and had a light bulb moment. The next second, her eyes started to redden. I hesitated for a moment, then played along and took out a tissue. "Don't cry." No. Sarah stubbornly turned her head away, just in time for the onlookers to get a clear view of the glistening tears in her eyes, poised to fall, but not quite. Everyone fell silent. Even Liam forgot his anger, his jaw dropping. He probably never thought a girl who cared so little about her image existed. When no one was looking, Sarah nudged me with her elbow. "Crying doesn't make you right," I sighed softly and said, You dirtied my notebook, and now I've dirtied yours. That's fair. And I paused, my tone sincere. If we're really comparing, don't you think Sarah looks a lot prettier when she cries than you do like this? Liam was once again rendered speechless with anger, but everyone's gaze shifted in unison to Sarah. The corner of Sarah's mouth twitched. She couldn't hold her expression together anymore. The consequence of our moment of triumph was that both Sarah and I were dragged to Mr. Davis's office during lunch for a lecture. I thought we'd get a harsh scolding. But Mr. Davis just whispered with a dark face, "Couldn't you have found a more respectable way to handle this?" Sarah mimicked his whisper. "Do you have any respectable methods, Mr. Davis?" Mr. Davis choked on his anger and glared at her. He gritted his teeth. "A girl crying like that? If word gets out, I'll be embarrassed for you." "It's fine. The class president said I look pretty when I cry." Sarah seemed to have come to terms with it. I glanced at the tips of her ears, hidden under her dark, choppy hair, but still beet red, and didn't expose her. Mr. Davis was exasperated into a laugh. He didn't say much more. After comforting me for a bit, and realizing I truly wasn't taking it to heart, he waved his hand, signaling us to go back. But Sarah clung to the door, refusing to leave. "Mr. Davis, give me some tissues." "What do you need tissues for?" "To wipe my tears," she said, completely shameless. "The homeroom teacher from the class next door watched us come in here. If I don't pretend you yelled at me until I cried, who knows how he'll gossip about you behind your back." Mr. Davis and the teacher from the next class had been rivals since they were young, and Liam was the apple of that teacher's eye. "Get out! Get out!" A pack of tissues was tossed at Sarah. She caught it with a grin, then turned to comfort me. "Don't worry, class president. I'll give you half in a bit." "Thanks." Thankfully, Sarah wasn't completely unreasonable. When I caught up to her to thank her again, she just waved her hand and said, "Save that thank you for Olivia." Olivia? If we were ranking people in the class who disliked me the most, Olivia, the vice president, would definitely be at the top. She resented the fact that I was ranked above her, despite her being better at everything except academics. She said someone deliberately ruined your notebook. Sarah turned her head, her jet-black eyes crinkling with a smile. "And that notebook of Liam's, another classmate stuffed it into my hands on my way out." I was stunned, my mouth opening and closing without a sound. A strange emotion spread through my heart. Class president. The girl walking ahead of me suddenly stopped. She turned around, tilting her head up slightly. Her dark eyes were fixed on me. Then they curved into a smile as she said, "If you really want to thank me, how about you lend me your notes? I've been drooling over them for ages. Instead of lending them to someone who doesn't appreciate them, you might as well lend them to us and benefit the whole class." Almost no one had ever asked to borrow my notes. Chloe was the first. And now Sarah. Sunlight streamed through the window, landing on her. The tips of her chestnut hair glowed. Sarah looked at me, a rare seriousness in her eyes. I uncomfortably averted my gaze. After a long moment, I heard my own reply. "Okay." Lending my notes was just the beginning. Sarah had always been the type to take a mile when given an inch. "Class president, how do you solve this problem?" "Class president, can you explain your thought process for this question?" "Class president!" I got so used to Sarah's constant calls of class president that when a worksheet appeared in front of me, I looked at the problem and instinctively started explaining. It wasn't until I heard a slightly stiff thank you that I belatedly realized the person in front of me wasn't Sarah. "What?" Olivia uncomfortably snatched her paper back, trying to look fierce. "We're all classmates. If you can explain problems to Sarah, why can't you explain them to me?" I stared at her, stunned. "I thought you'd ask the teacher." "The teacher already went over it in class, but I didn't get it," Olivia pouted. "And I think your method is simpler. Also, Also, I admit your notes are better organized than mine. The last sentence was barely a whisper. The girl who had always been so proud in front of me was actually blushing, but I wasn't used to handling situations like this. At a loss, I instinctively looked for Sarah. But Sarah wasn't there. Just as Olivia's face was starting to pale, on the verge of getting angry again, I racked my brain and managed to choke out, "Do you have any other questions you don't understand?" Olivia was so exasperated she laughed. "I'm not David." David was last in our class. Thinking I'd said the wrong thing, I reflexively apologized. But Olivia seemed even angrier. "Sarah, get over here and talk some sense into him." "Take it easy." Sarah, who had been missing, suddenly reappeared and slowly walked back to her seat. I seemed to understand something. So after Olivia left, I asked her, "Why are you doing this? Didn't you say you disliked yourself the most?" The pen spinning between her fingers abruptly stopped. Sarah looked down. "I just want to know, when everyone starts to like you, will you still dislike yourself so much?" Her tone was casual, yet incredibly serious. I was speechless for a moment, and it took me a while to find my voice. "This won't do you any good." Sarah just smiled non-committally, but her words became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not long after, rumors about Sarah started spreading around the school. Sarah was pretty and had a great personality. Turning in a blank exam had made her famous overnight. So when gossip about her started to surface, it spread like wildfire, and I finally learned why Sarah had to transfer schools so close to the final exams. I heard Sarah's good grades before were all from forcing her best friend to help her cheat. No wonder she turned in a blank test. She doesn't know anything. And that best friend of hers is a low-income student. When Sarah was helping her out, a lot of people at Midtown High were praising her. Who knew she was so shady behind the scenes? I heard she was even planning to use her family's connections to steal the girl's guaranteed admission spot. If that girl hadn't finally had enough and reported her, who would have known Sarah was so two-faced? But Sarah acted as if none of it had anything to do with her, until she went to the convenience store to buy drinks for her friends. A sarcastic voice piped up. "If I were you, I wouldn't dare drink that. Who knows what ulterior motives she has, pretending to be so nice to me." As soon as the words were spoken, the hand of the classmate who had been about to thank Sarah with a grin froze in mid-air. I recognized the speaker as one of Chloe's friends, Jennifer. Last night, Chloe couldn't stop herself from calling me. She started with, "Why are you helping an outsider bully Liam?" The incident had happened a few days ago. Chloe's accusation was late. Surprisingly, I was able to reply to her calmly. "No one bullied him. He ruined my notebook. Liam didn't do it on purpose. Sarah didn't either." Chloe was choked with anger, then furiously changed the subject. "Why haven't you been bringing me notes these past few days? And you lent your notes to other people." It must have been the static on the line, but I could almost hear a hint of grievance in her words. I frowned. "Didn't you lend my notes to Liam?" "That's different." Perhaps out of guilt, Chloe's voice rose. I was used to giving in to Chloe, and I was bad with words, so now I didn't know what to say to refute her. In the end, I could only stay silent. I heard the sound of something smashing on the other end of the line. Chloe always had a bad temper. I used to read a lot of books, and even took notes on how to make her happy. But in reality, none of it could compare to a single smile from Liam. "Mark." After Chloe had vented enough, she suddenly called my name. Then she asked out of the blue, "What's your relationship with that Sarah girl?" Before the word classmates could even leave my throat, she had already hung up. I figured Sarah had gotten dragged into this because of me. "Got held up on the way back. These drinks aren't cold anymore." Seeing the classmate's hesitation, Sarah smiled and withdrew her hand. "I'll get you another one later." But Jennifer wouldn't let it go. She glanced at me and sneered. "No wonder you can hang out with our class president. Birds of a feather flock together. By the way, Sarah, Do you know why no one in our class wanted to hang out with the class president before you came? Because he's a bad omen. His dad died because of him." Jennifer didn't get to finish her sentence. Sarah's hand had already flown up and slapped her. The usually good-natured girl stared at her with dark, cold eyes. Word by word, she said, "Say one more word. I dare you." Strictly speaking, Jennifer was the one who started the fight. But when Sarah's dad arrived, he slapped her without even asking what had happened. He hissed, "Can't you just stay out of trouble for once? Why are you hitting your kid?" Mr. Davis pulled Sarah behind him, shielding her like a mother hen. "Didn't you even ask what happened?" "What else could have happened?" her dad yelled, pointing a finger at Sarah's nose. "This girl must have started trouble again. She was like this at her old school. Ask him how many times I had to clean up her messes." "I never asked you to help me." Sarah's lips twitched into a sharp, provocative smirk. "Weren't you just looking for something to do, you little brat?" "All right, that's enough from both of you." Mr. Davis had a splitting headache. I used the excuse of delivering test papers to take a look. Sarah was leaning against the wall, head down, looking nonchalant, as if the argument had nothing to do with her, until she sensed me come in. She turned her head to look at me, then winked, motioning for me to come over. I thought it was something important. But the next second she whispered, sounding wronged, "Mr. Davis doesn't have a mirror. Take a look, is my face ruined?" I stared at Sarah's face for a moment, and nodded seriously. "Yes." Sarah's face instantly paled. She looked more panicked than when her dad was called in. "Sarah," I suddenly started laughing and said, "Jennifer was right. I really am a bad omen. See? Now you're tangled up in it because of me." Bad omen. Bad luck charm. Those were the words my mother always used to yell at me. At least back then I still had my dad to love me. But my dad died saving someone. That day, he was taking the long way home to buy a cake to celebrate me getting first place. He happened upon a car accident. A pregnant woman and a child were trapped in the burning car. My dad got them out, but he couldn't get out himself. My mother was convinced I had killed my dad. I had argued back, but then the elderly neighbor who had always doted on me had a sudden heart attack. The stray puppy I was feeding was beaten to death by a school security guard and thrown in the trash. Even during the time I was forced to get close to Chloe, she got into a car accident while looking for me. My mother hated me, but her life just got better and better, so I thought maybe I really am a bad omen. "Bullshit!" Sarah suddenly shouted. It was so loud that even Mr. Davis and her dad looked over. Her dad, furious, snapped, "Sarah, if you don't shape up, you can just get the hell home." Sarah ignored her dad, her eyes fixed on me. She was getting annoyed. "Are you listening to their nonsense? This has nothing to do with you. It's those damn—" "Then prove it to me." I cut her off, my voice soft. "Prove to me that this didn't happen because I'm a bad omen." "This has nothing to do with you in the first place. How am I supposed to prove that?" Sarah calmed down. She smiled a little mischievously. "Class president, you're being so nice to me. Aren't you afraid I'm also trying to force you to help me cheat?" "I won't help you cheat," I shook my head. "And you don't need it." The last math problem on that practice exam was incredibly difficult, but Sarah had solved it. I had watched her in the empty classroom quietly solving the problem, only to tear the paper into pieces and throw it in the trash. I had pieced that test paper back together, and now I was giving it back to her. "Next time, tear it into bigger pieces," I suggested. "It's a real pain to put back together." Sarah was stunned. Her lips moved, but then she turned her head away in embarrassment, silent. Sarah's current mother is her stepmother. As the old saying goes, when you get a stepmother, you get a stepfather. Everything Sarah's dad knew about her, he heard from her stepmother. Whatever that woman says, the old man believes. Sarah, however, seemed indifferent about it. But when she talked about her former friend, She fell silent. After a long pause, her voice was hoarse. There's not much to say. It's a classic betrayal story. When that person was being bullied, only Sarah stood up for her. When she found out someone was forcing her friend to help them cheat, it was Sarah who encouraged her to report it. But when the results of the investigation came out, it was Sarah who was punished. The girl cried and said she was threatened. You don't know. You don't understand. They would have actually killed me. You can protect me now. But what about after you leave? You won't always be around. Eventually, that person even started to resent Sarah for helping her fight back. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't have kept targeting me. I just had to wait until they got bored. But you had to force me. You were the one who forced me. You're the one who ruined my life. What the hell? What a piece of trash. The students in our class were incensed when they heard the story. The classmate who had hesitated to take the drink from her earlier came over to solemnly apologize to Sarah. Sarah stared blankly at the group of people in front of her. Her voice was raw. You guys believe me? Of course. David came over and slung an arm around Sarah's shoulders, grinning. We're not blind. We can see what kind of person you are. But you haven't even seen any proof. Did they have any proof when they were slandering you? Olivia frowned, her mouth twisting in disgust. It was all just based on that person's word, right? But Sarah, why wouldn't they believe you? Sarah was silent for a moment. That person was a good student, usually quiet and timid. And I really didn't like to study back then. People's prejudices are a mountain you can't move. Everyone sighed in agreement, then asked curiously, So how did you get so good at studying later? I heard your grades improved a lot, Sarah. Because... Sarah's words trailed off as she saw me enter the room. She coughed and quickly turned her head away. For some personal reasons. Amidst the teasing, I handed Sarah a test paper. Mr. Davis wants you to finish this. The teachers for each subject will grade it for you immediately. I paused, then added, This time, every student is a proctor. It was actually very simple to debunk the rumors about Sarah. All she had to do was take another test. But after that incident, she had been turning in blank exams. David immediately jumped up. My time has come. Even I get to be a proctor. He was immediately pushed back down by the other students. Sarah looked up at me. Like a clueless kid, she asked, But I haven't reviewed in a long time. What if I do badly? Mr. Davis has set a margin of error for you based on your situation. I smiled. Then we'll fill in the gaps. I didn't tell Sarah that while she was telling her story, Mr. Davis had been standing at the door, wiping away tears. The result of this fatherly outburst was that he decided to strictly supervise Sarah's university prep for the last few months. I saw Chloe a week later. She had gotten into another fight with her family. My mother urgently called me home from school, then forced me to go find Chloe. You must have done something to make her angry. She pinched my arm hard, then said, If you can't find her, you can forget about going to school. My mother wanted a rich son-in-law, so she was much kinder to Chloe than to her own son. Numbly, I went out to look for her. The wind was strong that night. By the time I found Chloe, my stomach was cramping so badly my face was pale, but at least I could breathe a sigh of relief. When she looked up and saw me, Chloe's body tensed for a moment. Then she bit her lip, her tone fierce. What are you doing here? Looking for you. Looking for me? She seemed infuriated, turning her head away as her voice shot up. I thought you didn't care about me anymore. What are you doing here looking for me? But the end of her sentence was laced with obvious hurt. Her eyes were red as she glared at me. I tried to remain calm. My mom told me to find you. I can only go back to school once I've found you. Chloe was stunned. Just because your mom told you to find me? The pain was getting worse. I could only hold my breath to try and ease it. Chloe took my silence as confirmation and shot to her feet. "Mark!" I suddenly felt exhausted, too exhausted to keep up this act with Chloe any longer. So I said softly, "Your eyes are better now. You shouldn't make Mrs. Davis worry about you anymore." "My eyes... Wait, how did you know my eyes are better?" She seemed surprised that I knew. She was instantly flustered, even a little panicked. "I wasn't trying to hide it from you. It's just, they're not fully healed yet, and if there are more problems later, I didn't want you to get your hopes up for nothing." Chloe tried to explain, but her voice grew smaller and smaller. She fell silent for a moment, then looked at me cautiously. "That day, did you?" "I'm not taking a year off school," I cut her off and told her calmly. "I'm not you. I don't get a second chance. I'm sorry if I let you believe I'd take a year off school with you. That was my mistake." I had never promised Chloe. That day, I was trying to figure out how to refuse without hurting her too much. But Chloe had mistaken my silence for agreement, just like countless times before. No matter what she said, I would always end up agreeing. "What do you mean?" Perhaps the night air was cold, making Chloe's voice tremble. She instinctively grabbed my hand, her eyes red-rimmed. "You're not going to stay with me either? You promised! You can't go back on your word." Eventually, she started saying things she didn't mean. "Mark, if it weren't for that car accident. So how did you find me that night?" Chloe's hand clutching mine went stiff. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to say something, but a gust of wind caught in her throat and she started coughing violently. She coughed until it sounded like her lungs were tearing apart. I had gone to see her friend. Perhaps out of guilt, she told me the truth about that year. The salvation I thought I had found was, in the beginning, nothing more than a trick by a group of teenage girls. Chloe hated that I was trying to get close to her with a motive. And those friends, to get on her good side, had bribed the friends I had first made. They took me out to hang out, then deliberately abandoned me. Chloe knew, but didn't stop it. It wasn't until late that night when I still hadn't returned that the group started to panic. Chloe, afraid things would get out of hand, went out to look for me too. And that's when the car accident happened. I had been making amends for it all this time. But now I said, "Chloe, I don't owe you anything anymore." Saying those words, I felt an inexplicable sense of relief, as if a heavy weight that had been pressing on my heart had finally been lifted. No one knew the torment I went through during that time. I really thought it was because I was a bad omen. The hand gripping mine tightened. Chloe's mouth opened, but not a single word came out. She looked at me blankly. "Are you angry with me? Shouldn't I be?" A dead silence fell between us. It wasn't until the Davis family's security guard came to pick her up that Chloe seemed to snap out of it. She bit her lip and suddenly shoved a gift box into my hands. She said stubbornly, "You promised me." I didn't take it. The gift box fell to the ground with a crisp clatter. Chloe froze. "Take it or leave it." After throwing that angry sentence at me, she turned and left. But it looked more like she was fleeing. The contents of the gift box spilled out, a pile of ceramic shards. I glanced at it, then picked everything up and threw it in the trash. Then I sat quietly on the swing, lost in thought. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to hear those words. Bad omen, bad luck charm, over and over again. At least not tonight. Although I think just sitting here quietly is pretty nice. A piece of paper suddenly appeared in my line of sight. Sarah's teasing voice came from beside me. "But I'm afraid it'll be too late after midnight." "What's this?" "I assume the future top scorer in the province knows how to read?" I didn't say anything, but my gaze froze on the words. There were 42 people in our class. Besides Mr. Davis, the paper had 39 well wishes written on it, signed with 39 names. "Olivia quietly told me that you were the one who stood up for me that day, asking them to believe in me." They believe in me, but they believe in you more. Sarah walked in front of me, looking up at me with a smile. Coincidentally, I believe in you too. My fingers holding the paper curled slightly. I suppressed the itch in my throat. There are only 39 students. I think the student in charge of delivering the wishes deserves special treatment. Sarah touched her nose a little awkwardly. See? You were never an unlucky person. I want you to be happy. I want you to keep moving forward. So, Mark, happy birthday. Every word was spoken with incredible sincerity. As the last syllable fell, the date on my phone screen silently flipped to a new day. And in Sarah's eyes, I saw a light brighter than the stars. So I curved my lips into a smile. Okay. Chloe never came to find me. I don't know if it was out of guilt or something else, and Liam would always run away in a panic whenever he saw me. I didn't report him. I just let him stew in his own fear. He was someone who cared immensely about his image. Sarah was also cramming for her exams under Mr. Davis's watchful eye. She was smart, but her basics were weak. Plus, she had a lot less time to review than everyone else. Even if she took the final exams, the best she could hope for was a decent state university. Sarah said she would take a year off school. I've worked so hard, I just want to get a good score, she said vaguely. I didn't ask for details, just encouraged her to keep going. Sarah was instantly fired up, as if she'd been shot with adrenaline. Her energy spread, and the entire class's study atmosphere reached an all-time high. Mr. Davis was so happy he couldn't stop grinning. The next time I saw Chloe was at the airport. I was flying to Chicago. Chloe was taking Liam, who had done poorly on his exams, abroad to cheer him up. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. The words tumbled out of her mouth. I knew you'd come. After that night, Chloe had been on edge. She wanted to find Mark, but her mom stopped her every time. Now that your eyes are better, you should be at home studying. Don't go bothering Mark. Chloe, who had been on her way out the door, froze. Was Mark mad at her because she kept interrupting his studies? That made sense. He wanted to get into that university so badly. So Chloe held back. And she kept holding back until after the final exams. She held back until she had thought things through. What she did before, it was wrong. So what if Mark didn't take a year off school? Chloe had never imagined Mark would get so angry he'd want nothing to do with her. He was so good-natured and soft-hearted. He'd get over it in a little while. He'd definitely cool down soon, Chloe thought confidently. After the exams, she eagerly went to find Mark, only to be told he had gone on a trip with some classmates. Why didn't he tell me? No one answered. Chloe sent Mark messages, but most of the replies were single words. He must be busy having fun, she told herself, until the exam scores came out. Chloe heard that Mark had scored very high, so she waited at home all day, holding the gift she had prepared, afraid he would come looking for her and she wouldn't be there. But Chloe waited for a long, long time. Mark never came. She waited until even her mom couldn't stand it anymore and told her to stop waiting, that Mark had already called to share the good news. Then why didn't he call me? Chloe asked, bewildered. Her mom glanced at her, but said nothing. Chloe was a little angry. She didn't understand what Mark was so mad about. Even if she had deceived him at first, hadn't they gotten along well during that time? She hadn't even held it against him for forgetting her birthday. She hadn't held it against him for breaking his promise. She had even gone out of her way to celebrate his birthday. Even though she was too angry to say happy birthday, it was because the gift she'd made herself had been smashed. Besides, Mark was the one who liked her first. Is this how someone who likes you is supposed to act? Chloe couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to go find Mark, but her friends stopped her. They said Mark was just playing hard to get, taking advantage of her guilt. Chloe, if you go looking for him, you lose." Seeing their confident expressions, Chloe hesitated. Just then, Liam came to see her. He had been on edge before the exams, so his scores were very disappointing. Seeing Liam so dejected, her friends urged Chloe to take him on a trip. It would also be a good chance to give Mark the cold shoulder for a while. Chloe didn't refuse. When she was buying the tickets, she hesitated, wondering if she should buy one for Mark, too. To be honest, she had never gone on a trip with Mark. But then she thought that Mark probably wouldn't be happy to see Liam, and he might misunderstand, so she gave up the idea. But she still couldn't resist having someone secretly tell Mark she was going abroad. And sure enough, Mark came to the airport to see her off. "I knew you'd come." The moment she saw Mark, Chloe felt like she could let everything go. But Mark's attitude toward her was cold, especially after he saw Liam. Afraid Mark would misunderstand, Chloe instinctively said, I'm just going abroad for another eye checkup." She didn't notice Liam's deathly pale face. All her attention was focused on Mark, her eyes filled with a hope she didn't even realize she had. She wanted Mark to ask more questions, preferably to show more concern for her. Just like he used to. Thinking of this, Chloe felt a surge of grievance. She still had so much to say to Mark. But Liam stopped her, saying it was time to board. And Mark seemed to have seen someone. He rushed off without even a goodbye. Wasn't he here to see her off? Chloe was stunned. But Liam quickly distracted her with another topic. "It's fine," Chloe thought a moment later. She knew which university Mark was aiming for. She and Mark had applied to schools in the same city. She and Mark still had a long, long time together. That's what Chloe had always thought. Until she came back and couldn't find Mark anywhere. Until she learned that Mark had changed his university choice a long time ago. She went to Boston. But Mark went to Chicago. How could it be Chicago? Chloe couldn't believe it. She tried to find Mark, but her calls wouldn't go through. All her messages were met with a glaring red exclamation mark. Mark had blocked her. The realization sent a wave of intense panic through Chloe. When did he leave? The day you left for your trip. So Mark really hadn't come to see her off that day. That was the last time they would see each other. And she was the only one foolishly looking forward to the next time. Only now did Chloe belatedly realize something. Mark hadn't forgiven her. It seemed she was really going to lose him. In my second year of university, I waited at the school gate for Sarah, who was arriving as a freshman. You're here so early." Sarah was instantly flustered. She instinctively dragged her suitcase over to hold an umbrella over me, then frowned. "The sun is brutal. Didn't I tell you to wait for me to get settled before coming to find you? You look even thinner than in your pictures. Have you been skipping meals again?" After some time apart, Sarah's mother-hen tendencies had only deepened. I listened patiently. When she started getting really worked up, I had to cut her off with a helpless smile. "Is there nothing else you want to say to me?" Sarah stopped abruptly. A flush of pink crept up to the tips of her ears. The day Sarah left to retake her senior year, I already knew which university she was aiming for. We had kept in touch all year, but we never crossed that final line. Olivia said even Mr. Davis was getting anxious. On graduation day, everyone was urging her on to confess her feelings to you. But she just said, "Don't worry about it. I have my own pace. She has no damn pace." Olivia was short-tempered, her voice full of disdain. She was just worried she wouldn't do well on her exams and hold you back. I, Sarah stammered for a while. After psyching herself up, she was just about to take a deep breath when I suddenly interrupted her. "David said you have a silhouette picture on your phone." As soon as I said it, Sarah's face changed dramatically. I looked at her, my expression blank. I heard it's a silhouette picture of you hugging a guy. Let me explain, Sarah panicked. That picture isn't of someone else. It's just you. No, wait, I didn't secretly hug you. That picture is... Glancing at my face, Sarah opened her phone, looking both guilty and wronged. The lock screen was that silhouette picture. I was taken aback. I hadn't suspected Sarah of liking someone else. After all, she had worked incredibly hard during her gap year. She had to squeeze out every little bit of time just to chat with me. The background of the photo was a classroom, but I couldn't remember it at all. The person in the photo is you. She looked up at me cautiously, then quickly lowered her head to admit her mistake. That day when you were explaining a problem to me, I secretly used forced perspective when you weren't looking. Later, when I missed you, I would look at it. If you don't like it, I can delete it. She said that, but her voice was so choked with unshed tears it was clear she didn't want to. I said, "Oh." "Then delete it." Sarah froze, then deleted it, looking utterly wronged. "Let's take a new one." Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "The weather is nice today." I held out my hand to Sarah, my eyes crinkling into a smile. "Want a hug?" Sarah stared at me, stunned. Her eyes slowly reddened. I sighed. She really was a crybaby. I patted Sarah's back, signaling for her to let go when she was done hugging. I was about to show her around the campus when a familiar, hoarse female voice called out, "Mark!" I never expected to see Chloe again. Chloe had been frantically looking for me all that summer. Mrs. Davis had sensed something was wrong. Under her questioning, Chloe confessed everything. She was so angry she slapped Chloe hard. Then she called me to apologize. She said she had failed to raise her daughter properly. I couldn't hold a grudge against an elder who had been kind to me, so I just said that if possible I didn't want Chloe to bother me anymore. Mrs. Davis promised. And Chloe really hadn't been able to find me, but she insisted on taking a year off school. Mrs. Davis couldn't change her mind. Olivia told me all of this. She also said that Chloe and Liam had a falling out. Liam refused to swallow his pride and retake the year, went to a second-tier university, and was never heard from again. I nodded, but didn't give it much thought. The only thing I hadn't expected was that Chloe had also gotten into a university in Chicago. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. She instinctively started to walk over, but then she noticed Sarah beside me and stopped abruptly. Finally, she managed a smile that was uglier than crying. She asked cautiously, "Am I too late?" After a year, Chloe did seem more mature. Sarah instinctively shielded me, retorting, "Even if you came early, there'd be no place for you." I couldn't help but laugh at her mother hen protecting her chick act. Chloe ignored her, her eyes fixed on me, as if afraid I would disappear if she blinked. I frowned. "I thought Mrs. Davis made things very clear to you." I took out my phone to call Mrs. Davis, but Chloe stopped me, her breath coming in short gasps. "I don't mean anything by it. I just wanted to come and apologize to you." Chloe had never bowed her head to anyone. She was spoiled from a young age, with a crowd of people fawning over her. The only person who could discipline her, Mrs. Davis, was often too busy with work to pay close attention. So even when she realized she was wrong, she would stubbornly insist it was someone else's fault. This was the first time I had ever heard Chloe apologize to anyone. Seeing my surprise, a flicker of hope lit up in Chloe's eyes. She instinctively took out a ceramic puppy covered in cracks. Her voice was cautious, almost pleading. "Mark, look, I fixed the puppy. I'm sorry. I know I did something wrong. I don't hate you at all. I don't accept your apology." I cut her off calmly. The call had gone through. "No matter what, the car accident did happen because you were looking for me. So I took care of you and tutored you with all my heart. That's what I should have done. I don't owe you anything, Chloe." Chloe's friends and admirers were convinced I had ruined her. so they tormented me without restraint. At the time, I thought that was just what I deserved. I paused, then said softly, "I never expected an apology from you, and I will never accept your apology. Chloe, you're not really sorry. You just miss having a follower who would do anything for you, and you're not used to it." The day after I found out the truth, Mrs. Davis sent me a sum of money. It was both compensation and financial aid. She said, "Mark, you did nothing wrong in this matter. I hope you can move on." So she stopped my mother from coming to find me. I was very grateful. Chloe stood there stunned. The next second, Mrs. Davis's tired voice came through the phone. "I'm sorry, Mark. This was my mistake. I'll have someone watch Chloe. I won't let her bother you again." "Mom!" Chloe panicked. Mrs. Davis ignored her and hung up. So Chloe looked at me again, panicked, almost begging. "I won't bother you. I just really missed you. I wanted to see you. I can stay away from you." Her voice was thick with tears. Sarah was so angry she laughed. "Can I punch her?" I grabbed her suitcase and walked a few steps ahead. "I'll wait for you at the pavilion up ahead." When you got down to it, Chloe had screwed Sarah over back then too. It would be good for her to let it out. Thankfully, there weren't many people on this path. "I'm sorry." I didn't look back. She had let out her anger, but Sarah still looked aggrieved. She didn't say anything, just hugged me and took one photo after another. I couldn't take it anymore. "That's enough. I don't have a ceramic puppy." "Can't I even take a few extra pictures?" she asked, her voice dripping with jealousy. I was stunned for a second, then couldn't decide whether to be angry or laugh. "Are you jealous already?" Sarah turned her head away. After a long moment, she said in a low voice, "It's not jealousy. I just feel bad for you. Back then, you must have been really excited when you were making that puppy, right?" I thought back to how I felt then, and nodded. Chloe was beautiful. At the time, she was pretending to be nice to me, and saying we were best friends. It would be a lie to say I wasn't moved. Sarah's expression instantly turned fierce, and she muttered, "I guess I went too easy on her." "It's actually okay." I poked her puffed-out cheek. "Weren't you always wondering why I disliked myself the most? It's not really that I disliked myself." I thought for a moment, trying to organize my words to describe the past. I was just afraid that after people started to like me, they would find out that the real me is just ordinary. That besides studying, I don't have many good qualities. I was afraid that when they found out how unremarkable I was, they would slowly drift away. After my dad passed away, I lived under my mother's constant criticism. Whatever I did was wrong, so I gradually became sensitive and insecure. I made some friends when I first started high school, but they weren't very nice. I didn't tell Sarah about being abandoned, but at that time, I thought it was my fault, and I didn't have the strength to endure that kind of disappointment again. It's better not to have something at all than to have it and then lose it, right? And Chloe was an exception. I was making amends. And in my atonement, I was trying to save myself over and over again. I wanted Chloe to get better more than anyone. I wanted to escape the suffocating feeling of being a bad omen, a bad luck charm. I never expected it to all be a lie. To be honest, I instinctively gripped Sarah's hand tightly, looking down as I spoke softly. I almost didn't make it. How could it not have affected me at all? That feeling after learning the truth, of having a hole ripped open in my chest. An icy wind poured through that gaping, bloody wound. It hurt so much I could barely stand it. So for the first time, I skipped evening study hall. I spent the night at my dad's grave. The next day, I pulled myself together and went straight to school, pretending like nothing had happened. I was already annoyed enough, and then Mr. Davis made me watch over you, the troublemaker. I said it in a deliberately disdainful tone, but I couldn't keep up the act for long and broke into a smile. "But it's a good thing you showed up." Sarah listened quietly, but her grip on my hand grew tighter. "She said I had met you a long time ago, Mark. The first time was in the hospital." How old was I then? 7 or 9? He was just a little boy. But it was this skinny little boy who, when his family was hit by such a huge tragedy, shouldered everything with extreme calm. At that time, her mother was still in emergency surgery. Sarah wanted to see the family of Mr. Miller, the man who had saved them. But she didn't dare. She could only watch from a distance, secretly bringing them food. She wanted to be as brave as Mark. She wanted to thank him in person, and to say she was sorry. But just as Sarah finally worked up the courage, her mother, along with her unborn siblings, passed away. That night, Sarah came down with a high fever. When she woke up, she had forgotten many things, and her dad, after compensating the Miller family with a large sum of money, took her and left the city. They didn't come back until high school. The second time was in your junior year, when you gave a speech as the student representative. Sarah saw me on TV. I was still a thin, straight-backed teenager. She should have never seen him before. But for some reason, Sarah felt an intense sense of familiarity. He said his name was Mark Miller. Mark Miller, Mark Miller, Mark Miller. Sarah whispered the name, and her vision suddenly blurred. She still couldn't remember, but she had a gut feeling that if he saw her like this, the boy would definitely look down on her. Huh? Why did she care if he would look down on her? Sarah, did you start crying from insecurity just by listening to the speech? Get lost! Sarah laughed and swatted at her friend. The test paper in front of her had a glaring single-digit score in red ink, especially when compared to the grades of the boy on TV. Sarah was silent for a moment, then expressionlessly picked up a red pen. Holy crap, Sarah, are you possessed? Why are you starting to do problems? She couldn't be bothered to reply. She just chewed on her pen and wondered, how on earth do people find joy in solving problems? Or was that boy Mark Miller not actually human? That would explain a lot. And then later, Sarah transferred schools and became Mark's deskmate. I'm sorry. She said she didn't mean to forget my dad and me. She said if she had remembered earlier, maybe I would have suffered less. She said it should have been her who said, but it's a good thing you showed up. After confessing everything, Sarah instinctively lowered her head, as if awaiting her final judgment. The hand that had been gripping mine had let go at some point. Her whole body was like a taut string. Even her body was trembling slightly. Sarah's voice was hoarse, but she tried to sound casual. Mark, maybe you should just go back to hating me. And that's when I decided that besides being a crybaby, Sarah was also terrible at being honest with herself. When did you remember? Right before the final exams? I suddenly remembered that there was a period when Sarah had contacted me less. I had thought it was because she needed to focus on studying. I was silent for a moment, then asked, was the pressure a lot? It was actually okay. The word got stuck in her throat under my gaze. Sarah ran a hand through her hair, turning her face away to hide something. I couldn't sleep, so I would just do practice tests, but it wasn't very efficient. Not efficient, so she had to cut down on her own rest time. Silence spread between us. Sarah bit her lip and forced a smile. She changed the subject. Maybe I should go register first. She started to get up to grab her suitcase, but froze when I took her hand. I asked, have you been to see my dad? Sarah nodded. The night before I came, I dreamed of Mr. Miller. You dreamed of my dad? Yeah. The tips of her ears turned red. Sarah said in a low voice, Mr. Miller beat me up. I was screaming my head off. That definitely sounded like my dad. I haven't dreamed of my dad in a long time, I grumbled softly. Sarah thought she had said the wrong thing and was about to apologize, flustered. I was amused. The warm afternoon sun felt good, lifting my spirits. I looked up at Sarah. Then next time, let's go see Dad together. Tiny specks of light fell into her eyes, mingling with joy and excitement and slowly magnifying. I saw Sarah's eyes turn red again. This time, even her eyelashes were wet, clumping together. She nodded hard, her voice thick with emotion. "Okay. My dad doesn't like crybabies. I'll change next time. I'll change right now." Sob. Mark didn't cry, but Sarah was a crybaby. It was a good balance.